Welcome to Processing Purpose, a business and lifestyle podcast committed to having honest conversations about the stuff in our lives that is often suppressed, ignored, or overlooked. We are two brothers from very different backgrounds, but with one common goal. From entrepreneurship to relationships, from hobbies to house projects, nothing is off limits as we process becoming the best version of ourselves in business and life. And we're back.
Are we at 8?
I think so. Sounds right.
Feel like we got some good momentum going. I mean, yeah. The last one we recorded, all of them that we've recorded have been life-giving for me, but it's pretty wild to just see that the snowball's building and moving forward, and I'm getting more energized as we go, and so anyway, grateful to be back for sure.
It's been a lot of fun, and who knows when we run out of things to talk about.
Probably never. We're humans, so
yeah,
I'm sure we'll have plenty to ramble on about nothingness for you guys specifically. It's good. No, let's. What are we talking about today?
Hey, it was your topic.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about sacrifice. I feel like sacrifice is a really central part of entrepreneurship. I think there's just a lot of sacrifice, and I don't necessarily want to put a negative spin on that. I think when we think of sacrifice, we think, almost like deprecation, right? Like, oh man, now I'm going to lose out on this, and now there's opportunity cost here, and yada yada. Yeah, there's some of that for sure, but sacrifice is really important because it obviously puts your priorities. We talked, I think the last the fourth episode is priorities, the last release, and it puts those front and center. I mean, when we talk about sacrifice, it's really, for me anyway, it's zeroing in on the things that matter most and putting the things that don't behind me, at least just temporarily for the moment or the season. But what is sacrifice to you? What does it mean to you?
I think sacrifice, in my view, does have a bit of a negative connotation.
Okay.
Like, I think there comes with it an inherent giving up, meaning letting go. Or certainly a deferral, which you kind of alluded to there.
Can I challenge it for a moment?
Yeah.
Oh, and maybe I'm wrong, but when you look back, when we think of sacrifice in the future, it feels that way. But when we look back on the sacrifices we made to get to where we are now, like when you really break those things down, did you have to give up? Did you have to lose out? Did you have to... You know what I mean? Like, I think we build up sacrifice in our mind on the front end, and it turns out to be something very different on the back end.
Well, I don't want to say that it wasn't worth it.
Sure.
Okay, so it was totally worth it, but it was a conscious decision of a separation of some kind.
Okay.
Of a giving up. Looking back, I can't think of one that wasn't worth it.
Sure.
But that doesn't mean that it still didn't have an element of grieving that came along with it because of what you had to let go of or what you had to give up. For me.
Sure.
For me. Maybe, and I think sacrifice in general, I mean, I guess I don't know what the Webster's definition would be, but it's got to be death of some kind, right? Putting down, letting go. We probably should have looked that up before.
Yeah, maybe. I think of it in terms of time, right? You're sacrificing time to do one thing that you can't now do another. Meaning, you brought it up maybe in the second or third episode talking about Degree 33.
Yeah.
But you sacrificed time spent on the water because you were in the shop selling surfboards instead of being on the water.
Yeah.
So that's a great example.
And ultimately, the level of sacrifice is going to come down to the level that you want to play at.
Expand on that a little bit. Bring up, actually, I thought about this the other day, but bring up the conversation you had with one of your friends, I think one of your mastermind group friends, about getting to the next level or getting to the highest level possible. I remember you asking the question, something like, do you have to be that way to get there?
Oh, yeah. So, okay, we'll break those two thoughts out.
Yeah.
Because, depends on the level that you want to play out was my first thought there. And ultimately, and I see how they connected now that I said that out loud, I see how it connects. The bigger the game that you want to play, the more you're going to have to give to it.
Sure.
It just is, right? If you can think of that, whether that's schoolwork, athletics, the marriage that you want, right? There's going to be an element of a bigger commitment for a bigger game.
Right.
And consequently, that typically means you are consciously choosing to put some things down, to sacrifice, if you will, in some area so that you can play bigger in another area. The conversation Gavin's referring to is, for those of you that haven't watched it, I highly recommend The Men Who Built America.
Yeah, really great documentary.
Really fascinating. It's like a documentary combined with, I don't know, like live acting, right? It was a little bit of both, kind of all mixed in there.
Was that with Josh Brolin? Was he the one that narrated that? Doesn't matter.
I don't remember.
It's a moot point.
And one of the things that struck me in that documentary, and just for clarity, what it does is it goes through the Vanderbilts, the Carnegies, J.P. Morgan, Edison. I think Edison was a part of that group, and the Rockefellers.
Right.
And it kind of outlines what they did to create the empires that they did and ultimately create the foundation of our industrial revolution and kind of the, really what this country was built on. And it became really obvious to me that those men, specifically Rockefeller and Vanderbilt, were cutthroat. Were just like, I am going to take you down and you will not stand in my way.
Right.
And I was asking a coach of mine at one point, I was like, to be the very best, do you have to be that cutthroat? And he said, yes.
Like without
no
any
hesitation.
Yeah.
It was like, absolutely 100% yes. He said, but you don't have to be number one to make huge impact.
Right.
And that's really where the rubber meets the road there is, I think about the presidency, right, of the United States. Arguably the most powerful person in the world. And I know I'm biased because I'm American, but
I think most people would agree with that.
Can you imagine the game you have to play to be that person, right? To get to that point because of the amount of power. Here's the thing. If you're not willing, and this could be said for the presidency, it could be said for being number one in an industry. If you're not willing to play dirty, somebody else is. And they will beat you.
Yeah.
So is that kind of an ugly take on capitalism, achievement? Sure. Yeah. If you want to be number one, it's going to take a bigger game, and you have to decide whether or not you're willing to give at that level.
Right.
But you can still have huge impact without being number one.
Being number one and doing really, really well can be synonymous, but not always. And I just want to make sure that any of you that are listening to this understand that may be reality, but don't let it deflate you either from pursuing your dreams and getting after it and trying to become number one in whatever field you're in.
Yeah.
Just know that if you're willing to do those things and what it takes to get there, great. But if not, take a deep breath, pat yourself on the back, and just know that you can still do extremely well in any direction you go. But Luke's right. That's a huge sacrifice you have to make. And honestly, friendships, relationships get sacrificed to become number one a lot of times.
Well, and let's kind of bring this back down to a reality because,
right.
I doubt that there's going to be somebody listening to this that's, has a goal of being the next Rockefeller or Vanderbilt or Carnegie or something like that. If so, that'd be amazing. But
yeah.
Let's not fool ourselves here. Most of the people listening here, including you and I, just want to do the best that we can, become the best that we can, impact the world in the best that we can, and we kind of hold the air quotes best that we can loosely, right. Knowing that I'm going to go through and I'm going to do the actions that it's going to take to achieve the level I want to achieve. And if it happens, great. And if it doesn't, okay.
It reminds me of a quote I heard about a year ago. It said, successful people are the people that are willing to do all the things that unsuccessful people are unwilling to do, mm-hmm. right? And I think that's the point, right? That's the point we're trying to make with all of this, that the level at which you want to play is the level of sacrifice you will need to make. Mm-hmm. Now, let me ask this question. How do you know that you need to sacrifice this part of your time versus this part of your time, right? Because we talked about self-care. We talked about, the importance of get out and fill in your cup. How do we know that we're not spending too much time doing those things and not enough time on our business? And one thing I'll bring up before you answer that question is I also want to clarify that sometimes it has to do with expedience too, depending on the sacrifices you make and the time you want to put into something, or how quickly you want to get there, I should say, really depends on expediency as well.
Yeah.
How quickly you want to get there. But
I'm going to ring a gong that we've been ringing over and over and over, and there's only one answer to that, and that's coaching, mentorship. It's a blind spot. You can't, unless you have a roadmap, you can't know what it's going to take to get there.
Sure.
So to say that you're sacrificing enough, that you're giving enough, that you're committed enough, that you're putting enough hours in, that you're giving it enough dollars, whatever, that quote unquote sacrifice might be, you don't know if it's enough. I mean, look at the best athletes in the world. They all have coaches.
They do.
Multiple. The GOATs.
Yeah.
Have coaches.
Yeah. True.
At all levels. Nutrition, fitness, and of course the sport itself. Like, no one's going this without a coach. And so to think that we're going to become the best version of ourselves in parenting, in marriage, in business, without somebody that can show us the roadmap is incredibly naive.
Well, and it's you're 10 steps behind always, right? If you have the knowledge, like the people that get ahead, right, are the ones with the most knowledge and apply that knowledge on a daily basis. So coaches that are talking to executives and other business pros on a daily basis, they just have more insights than you. They have gotten more feedback than you. And anytime we take a posture that we know more than everybody else, it's a dangerous posture. It's a quick way to fail, in my opinion. What was I going to ask about coaching? That's what I was going to ask is, do you think that there's an opportunity, let's say for somebody that's starting out, it's like, look, I can't afford a coach, right?
Yeah.
It's $1,000 to $2,000 to sometimes $5,000 a month.
Yep.
Sometimes more.
Yep.
Could a mastermind group or a group of like-minded individuals replace that, at least for the interim? Can that be helpful to an entrepreneur that might not be able to shell out thousands a month for something like that?
Well, the short answer is yes, but let's zoom out for a second and define coaching.
Sure.
Okay. Coaching is getting instruction in an area that you're not proficient or could be better, right? And that's my generic definition off the top of my head.
That's good though.
Okay. So would this podcast be considered coaching?
To some, yeah.
To some. Would reading a book be considered coaching?
For sure.
Yeah. Would buying a course be considered coaching?
For sure, yeah.
For sure. So there's so many ways to get information from, and I don't want to put myself in the category necessarily as calling myself an authority, but there are certain authorities out there for sure in different areas that can give you sound, solid, generic, but sound, solid advice to take those next levels and achieve some level of, if we're talking about the financial success so you can afford a coach, achieve some sort of financial success so that you can then hire a coach. I didn't have a coach from the beginning.
Yeah, true.
Right? So, I mean,
your dad and other business
but
pros
I didn't
like
pay
him.
for a coach
Sure,
from the beginning. Okay.
You found other resources.
Yeah, I found other resources, and now I pay a coach. I still have my dad, but I still pay a coach.
And spoiler alert, for any entrepreneur out there that I know of, if there's a young, hungry entrepreneur that's got his ducks in a row, we kind of chuckle at that because we always say that you can't really have your ducks in a row, but you know what I mean. Has himself together, presents himself well. I don't know any entrepreneur out there that's not seasoned that wouldn't love just to help that person regardless of financial gain.
Yeah.
Especially if it's endearing and like, hey, can you just help me, with a few conversations to get things squared away? Absolutely. I do that every step of the way. So there are resources out there for you.
Absolutely. And some aren't going to be willing, but that doesn't mean that you can't find somebody that would be willing, right? So
yeah, I got a question for you too, just because you said the word authority, and I know I'm spinning here a little bit, but what makes somebody an authority in anything? Like, what qualifies you as an authority?
I think it's a term that is overly used in this day and age of information at our fingertips.
Sure.
Everybody, I mean, I can claim I'm an authority, and who's going to push back?
Yeah.
Right? So, from a generally speaking standpoint, I would say that you have more knowledge than the other person would
Sure.
make you an authority.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, on a general. Now, was it Malcolm Gladwell that talked about the 10,000 hour rule just being kind of a
I think so.
loose based line of this is right about where you'd be as an expert in your field.
As an expert, yeah.
So that's kind of, I almost put expert and authority synonymously side by side.
Yeah.
Once you become an expert, and I did the math, loose math. If you're working full time in any career, direction, venture, within about 5 years at 40 to 50 hours per week, in 5 years, you're an expert in your field.
Is that what it is?
Mm-hmm. And you've been an entrepreneur for
25 years.
You're an authority.
Yeah.
Yeah, you are. It's hard. It's weird to say that, and we've talked about that mental disparity before.
Yeah.
When you become an expert, you're like, no, I'm not. I have so much more to learn,
Yeah.
and that's the blessing, really, is realizing, wow, there's so much more to this, but you're an authority.
Well, and I think it mandates, and this is just maybe my personal view, I think it mandates somebody else saying that you're authority. Like, I don't know if there's sure. I mean, I suppose there's an element that you could be like, yes, I'm an authority, and you could take that mantle, but I think it's more easily given than it is taken.
True.
So,
what sacrifices have you made?
yeah, that's where I was going to go with this next too, right?
Yeah, I know we got to spin back to that, and I think that's important. But yeah, what sacrifices have we both made?
This is an interesting list. I did make a few notes because I was like, I had to think when you were like, let's talk about sacrifice. I'm like, that's
It's a good topic.
That's a good topic. So let's talk about Degree 33 first then.
Okay.
Because some of these are going to be the same and some of them are going to be different, but Degree 33, okay? I had to sacrifice money.
Yep.
Okay.
You said you put all of your money into it.
I had it, which wasn't a lot. Okay. I was only 25.
Yeah, you said $4,000 or something?
It was $4,000.
Yeah.
But it was every penny I had saved up. Right. And so it was 100% of what I had. I had to be willing to sacrifice. The next kind of major sacrifice was when I wanted to go to full time, when I wanted to switch from part-time energy to full-time commitment.
Were you still a sales manager at the time you started?
Yeah.
That's right.
And it's been said, you make a living 9 to 5, but you make a life from 5 to 9. And that's literally what we did.
Yeah.
And it wasn't 9 to 5 for me. It was 6 to 5. Right. And then I would come home and I would, help Holly with fulfilling or, running ads or whatever it might be to try and move this Degree 33 down the road. But I was literally putting in 14, 16-hour days, 7 days a week.
Right. And because you're excited about the venture, you kind of lose sight of that a little bit, don't you?
You do. It doesn't feel... The only time that really feels like a sacrifice is when friends call you and they want to go out.
Right.
Or you want to go do something or something like that. You're just excited.
Yeah.
When you're in the growing phase, it's just like you have so much juice going. Like, you don't really care. You're just in it. And
especially when you see it start to work.
You're eager. Yeah.
You're like, oh, okay, here we go.
You're eager to put that time in.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But when I made that transition from full-time, from part-time energy, that 5 to 9, to, okay, I'm going to make this the main thing. We took a serious income cut because I had a full-time sales position at a tech company in Sereno Valley in San Diego, and it paid really well.
But you knew in order to take it to the next step, the next level, you had to start putting more time in.
I had to.
You had to.
It had peaked. It had maxed out.
And it could have gone the other way.
It could have.
So
I took 2/3 of a pay cut.
That's a big pay cut.
That's a massive pay cut.
Especially when you're living in San Diego.
When you're living in San Diego, that's a significant pay cut.
Yeah.
And but we did. We just said, look, do we want to chase this?
Yeah.
Is this a dream that we're willing to sacrifice for? And we both said, yep, we'll stay in an apartment. And we stayed in an apartment and made the switch to full time and had to go get a loan or raise money to do that.
I've stayed in that apartment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, another sacrifice along with that came with that decision was our ability to own a home.
Huge sacrifice
We
you guys made.
did not own a home until this one.
Well, but the truth is, none of the other homes were the right homes.
No.
This was always the right home.
Well, okay. Yeah, if you want to get philosophical.
I really, but only because we talked about it so many times up until the point you bought it, of like, it just feels like we're supposed to be here. We talked about it. Anyway, and I'm grateful it did happen that way.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about a 20-year too, nearly arc of not owning a home, in which we could have owned a home if I'd have stayed employed.
Yeah, but at the same time too, that trajectory was also through a pretty significant recession. Remember, you guys were kind of getting your feet on the ground with your business when everything imploded last time. 09. So your faith in real estate was a little bit like, I don't want to put all my eggs there. And I get it. I understand that hesitation, but now we all make better decisions with the knowledge we have. And
yeah. And I think the point there that I want to make with owning a home is that when you commit to a direction, it can mean that you have to forego decisions that you'd want to have. Whether that, it was a home for us, but whether that was, your vacations that you want to do or getting yourself that new car or something, there's typically going to be a decision point where you're going, I either put it over here in my business or I put it over here for me.
Right.
And you're going to have to make that sacrifice likely, where you're going, okay. I mean, I didn't get a new truck till a month ago, and I've been driving the same truck for a really long time. That's part of it. It's just like, this is what it's required. This is what's required of me to do this.
And I think there's actually a lot of pride knowing that, you are making those those necessary sacrifices to take the next step forward for your family, for yourself. Yeah, you're like, oh, it'd be nice to have a nice truck or newer truck 2-3 years ago, but the reality is you put your family ahead because you chose not to.
Yep.
Which is so important, which is the most important.
Totally. Let's see what other sacrifices I make. I didn't have a normal apartment. Even though I was in an apartment, we had 100 surfboards in that apartment. I had surfboards in the bathtub. We had surfboards. We put our kitchen table against the wall. We had surfboards. It was a 900 square foot apartment. 900. Is that right? Sounds about right. And we had 100 surfboards. They were we had to take the surfboards out of the bathtub to take a shower. Like, having people over for dinner didn't exist.
Yeah, and those are things that don't seem like that big a deal, but really when you look back, they were big.
They will be for some people.
Yeah.
Right? So it all depends on what you value. Like there could be, people that are married and the wife loves entertaining or the husband loves entertaining, and there's sewing things all over the table because they're making scarves or
right.
And there's going to be sacrifices one to the other that could be more significant to the other.
Yeah.
And for us, we were on the same page and excited, and that didn't feel like a sacrifice. But I mention it because the environment could feel like that depending on what you value.
True. Do you feel like people that wake up every day and go, I can't believe I'm getting paid today to do this, holy smokes, do you think they still make sacrifices even though they're doing what they love to do every single day?
100%.
Yeah, I agree.
You bet. They may not necessarily be sacrifices from a standpoint of like, this hurts.
Right.
Because you're moving towards, not moving away. And
right.
So, that the sacrifices look a little bit different. Other people looking at them, this is an interesting thought. Other people looking at them, family, may judge them for the things that they are doing or not doing.
Sure.
An example that popped into my head is, putting kids in private school versus public school, right? Depending on where you come from, you may need to put the money. And I grew up in private school all the way through.
Yep.
And
now your kids are in public.
My kids are in public school, and that's neither here nor there. I've got no gripes. was going to say I've got no gripes against the public school. That's not fair. But it's the path that's right for us right now. And is that a sacrifice so that we can put money into other things? Of course.
Yeah.
Right? It's just the lens
right
that you view things through. I think, and I know I've kind of rambled about a lot of different sacrifices here. I think a lot of those were more just like part of the experience.
Right.
I think one of them that doesn't get talked much about, and maybe that's because it's not a reality for a lot of people, but Holly and I were working together. And for us to work together, it was really hard on our marriage.
Yeah.
And so did we sacrifice in that? Yeah, I would say that we did. Could I tell you what we sacrificed? No.
But it was a strain.
It was a strain.
Yeah.
And
which is not abnormal. Most people that either do or don't work together with their spouse would say the same thing, right? I've heard a lot of people go, "Whoa, you work with your wife? Whoa, I could not do that," right?
Yeah.
And not necessarily in a negative, with a negative spin on it, just like a whoa, that would be, And I do understand it from an intimate level because I do work with my wife side by side every single day. But there are times where, for sure, it can put a strain on your relationship.
Yeah. So that was a big one for us, is that it was hard on Holly and I. Someone had to be the boss, and that was me. Both of us agreed to that, but she was still my wife.
Yeah.
And it would come to decision-making time, and I would treat her like an employee, and that didn't go over well.
How long did that take to realize, oh, there's something here that doesn't feel good?
We had that business for a little over a decade, and I think it probably took us 6 or 7 years.
Oh, wow. To finally go, all right, the rhythm here feels off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's different seasons in that. When you're building together, it's different. You're on the same team. It was when it started to mature.
Yeah.
And some of the luster started to wear off, where it started to become a more obvious problem.
Yeah. When the romance of entrepreneurship starts to fade.
Yeah.
You go, oh, this is a lot more challenging than I thought it was going to be. Yeah.
But there's going to be sacrifices at every level, and in every game. That was Degree 33. My ski career had its own set of sacrifices.
Right.
Whether that was, I didn't go to normal education. I didn't go to normal school because I was traveling so much that I didn't have enough days that they would allow me to attend.
Right.
So I had tutors. Some would say, "Oh, you're lucky." Others would say you sacrificed. Right? It just depends on what you value. I lived, through my late teenage years, I lived in a different city than my family with a host family.
That's right, for skiing.
Yeah.
That's
so
right.
I sacrificed being with my family. Now I was chasing a dream. Did it feel that way? No. Would some view it that way? Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Lots of travel, training 6 days a week. We'd have 1 day off a week, and we were training 6 days a week, whether that's, on the hill or otherwise. And so, coming back to where I started, depends on the level that you want to play at. And then a bigger game is going to require a bigger sacrifice.
Yeah, and I'm going to circle back to and just reiterate that I firmly believe the biggest sacrifice for all of us is time. And it's up to you to define and decide how much time you want to give to what. But I'm going to also circle back to a previous episode and say it's really important for you to carve out that special time for yourself every single week, whatever that looks like. It's up to you. But that's really important because, in my opinion, and my story is I've sacrificed so much of my own personal time to achieve different things, or to lay it down for other people, for them to have my time for different reasons. And I talked about too that I've created really healthy boundaries around that now and want to make sure that I protect that time. But that time can get away from you really easily, or it's easier to sacrifice that time versus others, right? Kids have, practice or a game or a recital. That stuff's going to take priority over everything else. But please prioritize yourself, your personal time. Don't give that up every single week to be able to fill the gap otherwise, because it'll get away from you. And that's when it starts to compound. That's when it starts to build up on you and you realize, oh my God, I'm sacrificing too much. Well, you are, right? You are sacrificing too much. But I bring that up because the question is like, how much should I be sacrificing here? How much time should I be giving here? And only you know that.
Yeah.
Only you know that based on your plans and your goals and what you want to achieve. But don't forget to carve out time for yourself. Really important.
Yeah, I've got a buddy that has a huge company, massive company, and has built it in a very short window. And I would love to have results like that. And yet I know how hard he works, and I'm not willing to put that level of sacrifice in. Right? So
Amen.
It comes down
all
to,
good.
I'd love to play at that level, but I don't need to play at that level to the point where I'm willing to give what he's willing to give. And we all have to make, and it's an ever changing conversation. Right? You may have seasons where you're full on from sun up to way past bedtime. And there'll be other seasons where you can coast a little bit more, and you're always evaluating and always figuring out what's this season require of me. And that's always in flux. But
is what you want and what you need always aligned or never?
I don't think it's ever aligned.
Yeah. What we need is always very basic, right? Like
yeah.
I need, kind of the Maslow's pyramid of hierarchy or hierarchy of needs or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
Yeah. We always start with the basics, but what we want is always so much greater than what we actually need.
That's an interesting thought here, and I'm going to rabbit trail for just a second because I think this is being redefined for me currently, right now. I was raised in an environment where the progression of achievement is wish, want, need, God. Meaning, you wish for it, that's not enough. You want it, that's not enough. Not until you need it.
Right.
Are you going to go get it?
Ooh, I like that.
Okay. And it's like, okay, I can see how that gets there. The challenge with that is if you need everything that you're chasing, you will never be at peace.
It's the perpetual...
Because there's always something else to chase. There's always something bigger. There's always the next thing. There's always a bigger house, a faster car, whatever, however you want to define it. And if you're always putting something in the need category, you forever live in a place of dissatisfaction.
So is there a season where
and maybe I'm just speaking for myself.
Yeah. Well, no, I totally get what you're saying. Is there a season then where you can sacrifice less? Meaning, can you achieve those things that you've set out to achieve and go, all right, I don't have to give as much anymore. I can sacrifice less now.
Maybe.
Or is it just always that? Yeah, it's almost kind of like along the question of does parenting get easier? No, it just gets different.
It gets different.
Yeah, sacrifices probably don't become less; they just look different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I feel like that kind of, and I'm not even sure I have a total clarity on that right now. That's kind of what came top to mind is when you when you said that. But I feel like on some level that's being redefined for me right now on how to define what I truly need.
Well, you just got a new truck, so
so I don't need that.
Check. Yeah, I philosophically wonder about just the need for sacrifice, right? Just the overall need for sacrifice. Is it something that we should always be thinking about, or is it just something that we naturally do because it's something that needs to be done?
It's how bad do you want it?
Probably the latter, but
how bad do you want it?
Yeah.
To talk about some of the things you feel you've had to sacrifice.
Yeah, the biggest one I don't think I've ever talked about on this show at all is I was actually addicted to drugs and alcohol almost 14 years ago, and landed at Seattle's Union Gospel Mission. Ended up living there for a year and a half, and that was a huge sacrifice. I mean, I can go into the details of that, but I think anybody that understands how addiction works and how homelessness looks and feels, it was a major sacrifice for me to step out of the normal day-to-day world and take a year and a half time out for myself and get things straightened out, and back on a healthy track. And so that was a major sacrifice for me, and a major sacrifice for my family and reputations and everything else that goes along with it. Forever grateful for that experience. They said a lot when we were in there. When I bring this up because I think it's correlated to sacrifices, they always said we're always surprised when people stay. We're never surprised when people leave. Right? And so there was just a lot of turnover in there. A lot of people that were not willing to sacrifice, putting that time and energy and effort into getting themselves well so that they can step back out with strength and vitality. I had actually about 4 guys that I lived with ended up dying because they decided to go a different direction, went back out and relapsed, and it took their life. So forever grateful for that. In terms of business, jumping into real estate was a big sacrifice for sure. But I was also finishing my degree, so I had a lot of blind confidence because I always thought, well, if this doesn't turn out, I'm getting my degree, I'll use my degree for something else. So I kind of had an interesting window or a season of time where I felt like that sacrifice was, in a way, necessary to make. Like I'm young, I'm working on my degree, haven't really started a career yet. This is the time to take some risks, right? Take some chances on myself. And so I felt pretty good about making that sacrifice. It didn't feel like I was giving things up. It actually felt like I was taking a step forward for myself. But I had never really been an entrepreneur previous to that, outside of, flipping a few cars here and there and just doing a few entrepreneurial things on the side. But it was a sacrifice in that I went 2 feet in. I did the 1 foot in, 1 foot out thing for about 2 months working at a restaurant. I was bartending. So I bartended for another 2 months and then went 2 feet into the real estate game. Brooke was actually pregnant. She was at home with Liv. She was pregnant with Liv, our first child. And so I just said, hey, I want you to stay home if you'd like. I will get after it and hit the pavement and make it happen. And I did. It was not easy, but I ended up making just as much as I would have as a bartender that first year. So I found it as a win, right? A lot of people take a loss that first year. But I leaned into it and made a lot of sacrifices with my time and energy, and a lot of upsets along the way, especially in an all commission based business. Good example, I won't name names, but there was a couple that I remember early on in my career that I showed 81 homes to. And then they ghosted me, completely ghosted me. Not even a thank you, nothing, completely just shut it off. And that really that was a moment of clarity for me to realize how much sacrifice I was actually going to need to make to do well in this business.
Wow.
Now that's an extreme case. I haven't had many like that, but I have wasted a lot of time on a lot of people for a lot of reasons. And it's a part of it. It's a part of the game. Don't get me wrong. But boy, oh boy, have I put a lot of time and effort into things that did not pan out. And it's a hard pill to swallow, but like everything in life, everything evens itself out. It just does. No matter the sacrifices you feel like you're making now that are so lopsided, how is this ever going to even itself out? It will. Gradually, then suddenly, you will get to where you want to go. And I firmly believe those sacrifices might look different, but they're not going to feel as heavy and weighty as it did when you first had to step out with a leap of faith. But take that leap of faith. We talk about it a lot on this show. Take a leap of faith. You can do it. You have what it takes. Yes, it's going to be uncomfortable at times, but sacrifices, you're already making them. It's not like you're going to wake up today and make 100 new sacrifices. You're just going to shift the sacrifices you're already making in a different direction.
Well, I mean, it's debatable on whether you're going to sacrifice more at your job than you will as an entrepreneur.
Totally.
Right? I mean, when you have a job, meaning that you're employed, you have an employer, you have to be there.
Yeah, you do.
Your attendance is mandatory. And if you can't attend, if you can't be there, you're not going to have a job for very long, right? And so that could go in many different directions, whether you get called in on a Saturday to help out with a major presentation that's got to be done by Monday, and you were supposed to go to your kid's game on Saturday and you couldn't, right? So
right.
And that's going to happen in entrepreneurship and the business ownership game as well. But there's just as much sacrifice likely in what it is that you're doing than what you're wondering whether or not you should chase.
Totally.
It just might look different.
Right.
And I think that right there for me is probably one of my biggest sacrifices. When you choose to become an entrepreneur, you sacrifice an element of certainty. And as a species, we deeply value certainty.
Isn't it funny, though? Because on the flip side of that, you and I look at it very differently, right? Meaning we're entrepreneurs, so we see things through a different lens anyway. But I think it's a sacrifice to leave it up to someone else to tell me what my time's worth.
Totally.
I think that you and I are like, yeah, that 100%. That's a sacrifice we'd be making if we were employees. But we're not saying that's right or wrong. We're just saying, but that's the difference between the entrepreneurial mind and the employee mind.
Yeah. But there is a huge, massive element of unknown when you strike out on your own. And sacrificing the certainty of your paycheck, sacrificing the certainty of your benefits, sacrificing, there's a certain amount there that is a re-education process to what living with higher upside but with less certainty and a greater downside.
Potential, yeah, a real potential downside. But before all of you guys freak out and go, okay, there you go, you just validated, I don't want to do this, right? Like,
well, if that validated it, then you're great.
Yeah, well, no, I'd actually say, reminds me of Tony Robbins. He said, stop being afraid of what could go wrong and start getting excited about what could go right, right? Easy to put yourself in that position and just think, oh man, this is not going to work out the way I thought it would. Nope, it won't. But get excited about what could go right still, because it totally can.
Yeah.
And it will.
Yeah. What was it that was from the Stutz documentary as well?
Yeah.
And he was talking about the three constants in life. Do you remember what the word it was like? Pain. And it was
constant need for work, and uncertainty.
And uncertainty
are the three facts of life you can never shake off.
Yep. Pain,
constant need for work, and uncertainty.
Yep. And I think that the level of uncertainty is greater as an entrepreneur.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. But greater the reward too.
Absolutely.
In so many ways. So, man, we've both sacrificed a lot. We have. Whether we've spelled it all out, here or not, we do. Every single day we step out on our own to build a life and a business and everything for ourselves and our families in a way that we feel is fit to us. That's a sacrifice.
Yeah.
That's a sacrifice.
Have you sacrificed any relationships to be where you're at?
Only for poor reasons. Meaning, I never ever will or have snuffed out a relationship to get ahead. But unfortunately, I screwed up some relationships because of my addictions in the past.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, for bad reasons.
Yeah, that wasn't quite where I was going with that. I get that. Yeah.
But I'd say no. Not that I know of anyway. Could I have along the way that I'm unsure of? Maybe.
Yeah. I know that some people are going to have to.
Yeah.
They're going to have to leave their college buddies.
Yeah.
They're going to have to silence their family of origin that's doubting them. It can be a lonely road.
Yeah.
Being an entrepreneur. And sometimes that means that those relationships get shelved.
Right.
Doesn't necessarily get severed, unless you want to, I suppose. But there are times where they get shelved because you chase something and they don't believe in you. And I have seen it happen to people over and over and over. And I haven't necessarily had to walk away from relationships. I think I was blessed with coaching from an early age of surrounding myself with good people and making decisions about who I spend my time with very consciously. And I think that stacked the deck in my favor to not have to do that. But I know a lot of people do.
That is, I got to tell you guys, that's probably the key takeaway from all this is surround yourself. If you're going to sacrifice anything, sacrifice any relationships for healthier ones, for sure. The more you surround yourself with really high quality people who are forward thinking individuals that want similar things you want in life, you're going to get to where you want to go faster. You just are.
Yeah.
I truly believe that.
Yeah.
Now, let me ask this question too. Is it possible, or I guess, is it accurate to say the more sacrifices you're willing to make, the faster you're going to get to where you want to go? Or is that not necessarily true?
Oh, I'm sure there's a sliding scale in there somewhere. I think there's some, sacrifice has an element of relativity, right? So what one person sacrifices, another person doesn't even have to think about.
Right.
But generally speaking, yeah, it's going to take more sacrifice to play at a higher level. And I feel like we've said that a few times, but if you want to play a big game, if you're going to take down big competition, if you're going to be at the Olympics, if you're going to whatever it is, better pack a big lunch.
Yep.
Because it's going to be a journey.
Yep. I love that. That's great advice. Let's finish with one question for each of us to answer. Unless you want to finish with a different point, by all means do that. But question is what are you not sacrificing now? One thing that you're not sacrificing now that you know you need to make.
Whoa.
On the spot.
I just got goosebumps. Okay, so what's one thing that I know I should be sacrificing?
And that you are going to make a commitment to sacrifice. It's even heavier.
Wow. So off the top of my head, and this seems a little childish, but this is what came to mind. In the evening with Holly, I enjoy too much TV.
Okay.
I enjoy watching Netflix shows. I enjoy, and nothing wrong with that.
I'm the same.
I'm not trying to say that you shouldn't do that. I think that there are times where I binge watch too much. and
like 7 episodes in a night, bro?
Not that much. But in the same breath, I'll also go, God, I need to read more. I just don't have any time to read.
Sure.
Right? And both of those things can't be true.
Right.
And so that seems a little, that's why I said it feels a little petty or a little childish or a little but I really enjoy watching, I'm watching Drive to Survive right now.
The new season's out.
The new seasons of F1 on Netflix. And I could literally just chain watch them. I just watch them all and probably stay up till 4 a.m. But I can't.
Do you secretly want to be an F1 driver?
Yeah.
Who doesn't, man? What a cool job that would be.
I want to be an F1 driver. I want to be a fighter pilot.
One of my mentors actually recently, they said, it kind of hit me in the gut. He said, the big difference between those who are wealthy and those who are not is the wealthy would rather be educated and the unwealthy would rather be entertained.
Woo!
And I thought, oh my gosh. That kind of hit me square in the gut.
I mean, that's exactly what I'm talking about, is consciously being willing to forego the entertainment. Because I arrive at the end of my day, and I know you're the same way. I know a lot of people are the same way. Exhausted. You arrive at the end of the day, skidding into home plate, poured it all out on the field, and you don't want to give more energy to something else.
Right.
And you just want to check out. And certainly there's moments that's for.
Right.
And I'm not saying I'm going to stop watching Netflix. But I think that I am watching more than I probably should. And that's my lens, right? That could be defined however. Someone may have to cancel their subscription altogether because they know they can't self-regulate. Okay, great. But I need to focus more on education and less on entertainment.
Yeah, that's good. That's a lesson probably for all of us to take in.
How about you?
I think we're all there. Yeah, I'm firm on that. I keep playing the entrepreneurial game of cause and effect with what I'm excited about. So meaning, I want to get into barbecue. I want to put it out there. I want to take the next steps, but I keep stalling because this cause hasn't happened yet, so the effect hasn't taken place. No. I need to be the cause and I need to be the effect, right? I don't need to wait for those things to happen. I just need to go make them happen. So meaning I just need to go start putting time into it and start developing it and making it happen. So one idea I have for this year is I actually got to reach out, and it's not going to be today, but I'm going to make a note of it right now, is I'm going to reach out to the farmer's market to see if I can make sandwiches for this year's farmer's market.
Oh, for one of the
What the
caterers
heck?
that they do for an evening?
What the heck? It's something, right? It sacrifices a day. It gets me out there every single week in the summertime doing what I love to do, gets my product out there, my brand out there. It's a start, and I need to start developing this into something, into actual motion, and I'm going to.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
So that sacrifice is giving up a day, maybe even two, to put out what I want to put out to the world.
Yeah.
So got to make it happen. Stop talking about it and start being about it.
That's great. My final thought here as we approach 50 minutes is right in alignment with that. And that is success comes at your inconvenience, not your convenience.
Oh, totally. Oh man. I think I've said it before too, but, what do they say? Failure is painful, but so is success. It's up to you. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Both are painful.
Yep.
Both, are going to command sacrifice no matter what. And so I'm excited for us. I'm excited for you guys. And I'm excited to take a sacrifice that I need to take.
It's good. That's all I got. Anything else?
That's it.
All right. Thanks
Peace
for
out.
listening, everybody.
Thank you for tuning in to Processing Purpose. We hope you grabbed a few gold nuggets to take one step forward in your journey of life and business. Please remember to like and subscribe our channel if you'd like to get more content to help you build and grow everything around you. Make today your best day. Today is day one.